All right, gang. Welcome aboard once again for the weekly Mac Forum video chat for January the 8th, 2017. Well, almost said 2015 there and backed us up 2 years. Sorry about that. Uh, First, let's get right into things. Got quite a few things on the agenda for this evening. First of all, welcome, as you can see, to our newest member. I believe this is pronounced HISP. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Welcome aboard to them and to all of our new members. Keep in mind, if you are not yet a member, you can lurk the forum and read our answers all you want. If you want to ask a question, please don't put that in the contact us thread in the forum. That's generally a handle forum operation. Go ahead and register. It doesn't cost you anything unless you want to register for the premium account and help us out a little bit with the forum costs. And Go ahead and do that and then ask your question. And as you can see right now, we have quite a large number of members. This says it's 295,088 at this point. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into things here. I want to start with first one. I brought this up because, as you can see, member Alwyn is asking a question here about sharing contact changes. Changes in the contact list that he had were no longer shared between he and the spouse. All right. You can, if you are a user, a Mac user, and you want to share calendar information, contacts, notes, etc., 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 with someone else, you can do that via iCloud. It's easy to do through iCloud. You can use other services, but the key to this is if you're doing it through iCloud, both of the all of the people who are logged in that you want to share things with need to be logged into the same account. So, for example, if you want to share contact information with your spouse or calendar information, then make sure that you're both logged into the same Apple account, same Apple ID rather, and then make sure that the calendar information that you want to post to them and have them share, you're using the same account and you're posting to that calendar. Then for things that you want to keep separate, you could easily go through your other account or just choose not to share that calendar. So that works with calendars, contacts, anything of that nature. If you're going to share it with someone, they have to be logged into the same account. That's part of the reason that some people have more than one Apple ID. They'll use one ID for most of their things, and then they'll use another ID for the things that they want to share, like calendar, contact information, things of that nature. So to make that work, you've got to be logged into the same Apple ID on all the devices in question. All right, another one that we have here. I'm going to scroll up to the top because I forget the title of this thread. This one is interesting, and it spawned an interesting discussion. It's about a couple in Texas who is suing Apple over FaceTime issues, safety issues relative to FaceTime. And apparently there was someone who was trying to use FaceTime while driving. He is being accused of causing a car accident that led to a fatality. This couple's child, I believe, was killed in the car wreck. Now, that, of course, is a tragic event, and the discussion in the forum thread turned to, could you have some technology that that would prevent such a thing, such behavior? And if you could, is it the manufacturer's responsibility to implement that? And you know, one of the things that came to my mind as I was reading the thread, and I think I posted something similar, is this: even if the technology is in place, there's nothing that I can tell that would prevent a user from, shall we say, being less than truthful about their activities. So if a driver is getting into the car and he's about to activate FaceTime, FaceTime senses the car is in motion, it won't activate, then he can't use it even if he's the passenger, unless he says, and the thing comes up and says, are you the driver or are you the passenger? What prevents him from basically lying and saying, oh, I'm the passenger, it's okay for me to use it right now? And then, of course, by extension, if you're going to apply that kind of logic, then what do you do with all of these kits? And I linked to one in the thread that add in-dash entertainment systems. Aren't they as distracting? And if they are, then what kind of penalties are going to be in place there? And do you then go after those manufacturers? For me, anyway, it boils down to the personal responsibility, holding the drivers of those vehicles responsible for their actions. There are tons of other things, non-technological things, that could be distracting to drivers. And so it seems to me that it's much more effective, practical, whatever you want to call it, to hold those drivers responsible when they are operating a vehicle while easily distracted. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and there's been some interesting discussion in that thread. It's certainly worth a few minutes to read through and see what you think about it. Also, here's another mail and contacts and groups question. I put it separate from the other one because it's just enough different that I didn't want to get them confused. This has to do with what do you do when you send a group email, an email to a group of people. Now that's easy to do. You create your group in contacts, and then once you've created that group, you launch mail, and in the field where you normally would put an address, you put the name of the group that you want to send to. Now, that's not the question of this thread, okay? The big question is, how do you send it to a group without every member of the group being able to see everybody else's address? So in other words, let's say you got 10 people in the group and you email that group. We're going to call that group, let's just say, Mac Forum, and you send it to 10 people in the group. All of the people in the group, all of the 10 people in that group could see the addresses of all the other people. Now, the only way to stop that, and a lot of people kind of assumed that that's not true, and that's the point of this thread, is how do I get around that? Once I know that's true, how do I get around it? Well, the only way that I can think of, and this is kind of discussed in the thread, and I must admit I did not think of this and was not sure that it would work, is to put the name of the group in the blind carbon copy field, the BCC field. In the to field, you might put your own address or something of that nature. That's one way around it. That's certainly more practical than sending each email individually if you've got quite a few emails to send. You know, sending one or two, if you got a group with 5 people, sending 5 different emails is one thing. That's not too difficult. But if you've got a group of 50 or 100, it's a very time-consuming thing to do. So this is maybe one solution that's worth examining. All right. This next one is something that I dug up. We had member Tape looking to create an encrypted folder to password protect some stuff. But one of the problems that this member was having is that each time you add to the encrypted disk image, you had to recreate the disk image. Otherwise, you ended up either with a file that was too small or one that was larger than it needed to be, and recreating the disk image is a little bit time consuming. So the suggestion that I came up with is to create, and you can do this in disk utility. I linked to the directions in the thread. The directions there are for an earlier version of the OS, but they should still work under Sierra because the option is still there. Launch disk utility, start to create a disk image, and one of the options for the type of disk image that you can create is a sparse bundle file. And a sparse bundle file it expands or contracts based on the size of the contents of the file. And the only reason that made me think of that is if you back up your time machine, if you're using Time Machine and you back up your data onto a network drive, it uses a sparse bundle file that expands or contracts kind of as needed. So you can create that in disk utility by going to and creating an image, but instead of choosing a regular disk image, look at those options and choose sparse bundle file. And that will help with that. And then of course you can encrypt the file. Now what I'm going to tell you is anytime you encrypt something on the Mac, whether you're talking File Vault or these encrypted disk images or anything like that, don't forget that password. In most, if not all of those cases, there's very little that Apple can do to help you to recover that password. So go ahead and make absolutely sure that you keep track of that password. I know I've done that once or twice with a Microsoft Word document that I password protected and then couldn't remember the password to get in it, and it was just faster to in the time that I spent looking for a way to deconstruct the password, so to speak, I could easily have recreated the document. So do be careful with that when you choose to use encrypted passwords, protected disk image file and document files. All right, this next thing is not really a forum issue. Looks like it's being a little bit slow here. It comes from Tech Review. Let me reload the page and see if we can get things going here. Sometimes the Tech Review site gets a little overloaded. There we go. This has to do with using Siri to add widgets to the notification center in OS X. As you know, the notification center essentially puts little reminder things. I'll go up and pull mine up, and you can see right now I don't have anything in there, I think, but there you go. All of these little things that pop up. Now what you can do if you follow these directions is to create a situation where, let's say that you frequently ask Siri for the latest hockey scores or the latest football scores. You can recreate that, use that search over and over again, and have it in your notification center and make it easy to use, to track down. This gives you some pretty good directions, pretty visual oriented. Of course, you have to be using the current Mac OS Sierra to make it work, because that's the first OS that's had Siri included. And as you can see, this page may be a little bit of a pain to load sometimes. It's not normally been loading like this. The last couple times I've gone to it, it's loaded rather quickly. So what you have here is you make the request to Siri, all right, and it's going to show you some things, show you what you asked for. All right, you can do web searches, and there are a lot of other things you can do. But if the request that you make is something that can be saved as a widget in the notification center, you'll see this little plus right here. So let's take something like a baseball score or a football score. If you're always asking for the scores for a particular team, when you ask Siri what those scores are, then this little plus symbol is going to pop up in the notification center. And once you click there, if you click on the plus, it creates a new widget in Notification Center. And now, from now on, anytime you click on the Notification Center at the top right of your screen, your new widget appears there. And you don't have to keep reiterating and reiterating the same search. I might create one of these. I didn't think to do it before the show, or I'd have demonstrated. I routinely use Siri to identify unidentified tracks in my library. I'll let them play, and I'll ask Siri to identify the song. And if you are a regular listener, you know that a couple of months ago that led to me screaming at Siri and henceforth being insulted by Siri. But that's another matter for a different day. But you could take something like that, and I basically say identify this song or identify this track, and make it a widget that you could use repeatedly without having to ask Siri each time. That's a neat idea. I did not realize you could do that. I stumbled on that entirely by accident. All right, and then this one, we talked a little bit ago about password protection, securing some things from sites. And this little set of tips is 5 basically simple steps. As you can see, comes from Fox News Tech, their tech site that covers tech news, and it comes from Kim Commando. My apologies if I mispronounced that. And it's just come out this week, yesterday, as a matter of fact. These are basically just some general tips that can help you in securing things. Most people are amazed at how much information, how much personal data is stored either on their computers or on the internet. When you start telling them, if you go to a website and you search for something and it starts showing you recommendations based on that search, it's gathered a certain amount of personal information based on the fact that you've been there before or what you've searched for that day. In some cases, they gather other information. There are even a few sites that you basically can't see their product until you start filling out things like name, address, etc., etc. I personally try whenever I can to avoid sites like that. If you've gone so far enough that you won't let me access information about your basic information about your product lineup, etc., without me having to give up some personal information, then I'm going to try my best to avoid doing business with you. But here are some of the tips that this Fox Tech site came up with. First of all, passwords. Have a strong password. Now, different sites have different rules about what kind of passwords that you create, but as a general rule, most of them are going to ask that you have a mixture of uppercase and lowercase letters, as well as other characters. The shortest number of characters that I've seen a site allow for a password is 6. Some of them will allow up to 32 characters. Now, I can't tell you that I remember 32 character passwords. I don't. You got to think of some other way to do it. There are some good password managers out there. Of course, the limitation there is you've got to have a good password on that password manager, because if somebody ever gets hold of that file, they've got everything if they can crack the password manager file. But one way around this is to use a passphrase, a phrase that you're likely to remember, and then use some sort of trick in the capitalization and punctuation that can dramatically increase the time that it would take for someone to hack. They give you some simple examples in here, and I won't go through all of their tips. Two-factor authentication where it's available. Some people do not like two-factor authentication, and it can be a problem. getting rid of accounts that you've abandoned. I still get things addressed to an email account that I had when I was writing for about this particular Mac. And we kept those accounts open for instances where people wanted to write us with a follow-up question about a column, but the downside is I get a lot of spam through that account now. But and then be sure to check periodically to see if your info has been stolen. And they also go so far as to suggest using a messenger program, private messaging program that supports encrypted end-to-end communication, so that somebody can't get a hold of your messages. This is a good non-tech summary. What I mean by that is, even if you're not, even if you don't consider yourself the most tech-savvy person in the world, you'll be able to understand their recommendations. And there's a good set of links throughout the article to each of the different things to give you additional information. It's a very good summary, and my wife stumbled on that one. I would love to take credit for that one, but that I have to give to her. She stumbled on that yesterday, I believe it was, and forwarded it to me. For a Windows user, she's constantly forwarding me stuff that I can use that's actually relatable. I noticed that I don't get the I hate Windows post or anything like that, but that's okay. And then one other one that I want to point out to you for troubleshooting purposes. This one comes from Dan Frakes at Macworld. And this is kind of the last tip of the night kind of thing. Dan points out, most of you know that the user library folder has been hidden in the last couple of iterations of the operating system. In other words, if you wanted to get in, now I don't mean the one that's at the system level of your hard drive. I mean your user folder, your library folder inside your individual user account. And in this article, it's mentioned that there are a number of ways that you can unhide this account. Now, what happens here is this. Let me see if I can find it where he says that there are, I believe, as many as 17 different ways to unhide this folder. I'm going to show you one that I like, and I'm going to go ahead and get the dragon thing out of the way here. I forgot that was up there, but here's one for you that you might want to try. You can do this. This is an easy way. The article that I linked to has some others. If you need to unhide your library folder for troubleshooting purposes, all right, here's how you're going to do it. Here's one way to do it. What you're going to first do is you're going to start by, first of all, make sure, I was still in Safari, that's why that wasn't working. Make sure that you're in the Finder. You can tell that by what's in the upper left here. Then I'm going to choose the Go menu, and I'm going to choose Home. You can also use the Shift Command H shortcut. Now, that's going to open, as you can see, that opened my user folder. And as you can see here, I've already got my library folder visible. I've been using a Mac for a long time. I'm comfortable having the library folder visible because I'm basically the only one who uses this computer. So here's one way to make that folder visible. You want to go to the View menu. Once you're inside your main user folder, go to View, and then right down here, you're going to look at Show View Options. And this little pad is going to pop up with your options, okay? You can adjust a lot of things, such as grid spacing. Notice when I monkey with the grid spacing, it gets adjusted. You can adjust the text. I've already gotten it as large as you can make it. All right. You can adjust the layout of it. Okay? But one of the other things you can do, if you look real carefully here at this set of options, it says Show Library Folder. Right now, as you can tell, I've got it checked. When I uncheck it, the library folder goes away. When I check it, the folder comes back. So you can use that to set it whichever way you prefer. The only time really that you need to be able to get into that library folder usually is if you're troubleshooting and you need to delete a preference. But that's an easy way to do it. I encourage you to take a look at Dan's Macworld article, because it will give you several other options. Sometimes when you're troubleshooting for a variety of reasons, one method may not work as well, and you'll need a different one. So that one has several. I encourage you to take a look at it. And that's going to just about take care of what I had on the agenda for tonight, except for one more little tip that I almost forgot about. If you'll recall, last week I spent some time talking about streaming on the Mac. And I have our Apple TV set to look for my iTunes library. Okay? And I can do that easily with the Apple TV. But one day I had Apple TV going, and I don't need tune up. I'm going to kill that. I don't need that open right now. I had Apple TV going, and lo and behold, I wanted to log out of my user account. And of course, the minute I did, iTunes shuts down, which means home sharing is off. And so I started looking for a solution. Now, up until a couple of months ago, I had my iTunes library running off an external hard drive that was connected to a time capsule. The USB port on that time capsule is no longer functioning, so I can't do my library that way. So what I've got going right now is my iTunes library is on one of these external hard drives that you see over here. And I've got iTunes pointed to that library. Let me just give you an idea of where I am here. So I started looking for a way to share that library even if I was logged out of my account. And here's how I did it. It's very simple. The first thing you want to do, as you can see, I've got numerous user accounts on my Mac. And this one that says media here is the one that I normally use to share my iTunes library. I've got that turned off right now. I'm not logged into that account. But so here's how I did it. You're going to do a couple of things. The first thing you're going to want to do, if you don't already have a second user account, okay, you're going to go right here to System Preferences. There we go, right there. And you're going to go to Users and Groups and follow the procedure to create a second account. It doesn't have to be an admin account. It can be a standard account. I have not tried it with the guest account yet, but it should work. Once you've got that second account created, log into that account, launch iTunes, and you want to check a couple of things in iTunes. First of all, one of the things that you want to check is to make sure that iTunes is pointed to the library that you want to share. So in other words, select the disk that has the content you want to share. Let iTunes go ahead and set that up and fix that. And then the other thing, I'm going to cancel that because it's already set the way I want it. Then the other thing you want to do is to go in and make sure that you turn on home sharing in that account that you want to share your iTunes library. Make sure you turn on home sharing and test it. Turn on your Apple TV, scroll over to where it says computers, try to access your library. If it doesn't work, check to make sure that you've enabled home sharing on the Apple TV, and also check to make sure that they're on the same network. Once you've got everything going, don't log out of that second account. As long as you're logged in, even if you're logged into another account, the Apple TV will still stream okay from your library. So I can be sitting on my couch with the Apple TV remote in my hand, use the Apple TV to scroll through my library and find something to play, even though I'm working in a second account on my Mac that doesn't have home sharing turned on. So that should work for you. It's worth a try. If you find the directions a little bit confusing, what it boils down to essentially is make sure you've got a second user account set up. Once you've got that done, go into that account, launch iTunes, make sure it's reading the library that you want to share, and then turn on home sharing. And instead of logging out of that account, go into the upper right hand corner here and use fast user switching to get back to your regular account. Now you can use your Apple TV to read your library even though you're not inside that account that you're using to share your stuff. So that's a pretty good approach. It's worked well for me so far. I'll try to test it in the coming week. Maybe over the weekend I'll test it with a guest user account, see how it works, and I'll let you know. But that's our Apple TV tip for the week, and I hope you found it useful. And that's going to just about do it for this week with all of our tips and tricks. I hope that you've enjoyed them as much as I've enjoyed bringing them to you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, I'm your host, Sylvester Rock, aka Sly Dude, and I'll see you in the forum.